plummeting morale, low pay, unjust wars. No wonder young people are resisting joining up to the military. Politicians always say thank you for your service to any member of the armed forces from the past and from the present. But they don't really mean it, do they? These brave men and women risk their lives for us every single day, and with the state of the world today, it's no surprise that they put their necks on the line to try and keep us safe. And the first priority of any government is to keep their people safe. But consecutive government after government over the last few years have treated our armed forces so poorly. Unless this situation improves, we could very well be in a very difficult position in Britain. Just have a read of some of these headlines. From The Economist, Britain's armed forces are stretched perilously thin. From the Communist? Bloody hell. Yeah, just a quick disclaimer, I am no communist by any stretch of the imagination, but in this particular instance, I think they sum it up perfectly. British armed forces. Outmanned, outgunned, and unaffordable. But the Telegraph sums it up best for me, because I think this is what will happen if we're not careful. British soldiers are underpaid, overworked, and taken for granted by our politicians. Unless they are paid more and listened to, they will leave the army. That gives you a pretty bleak prospect as to where we are currently as a nation, as a people, as a government, and as an army. So it begs the question, why? Why have we allowed ourselves to get to a situation where our armed forces are reducing in number, our current serving military personnel are not being paid enough, and our veterans are being left to fend for themselves with no aftercare from coming back from fighting in all these conflicts? Well, let's start with the obvious. The pay is extremely low. The latest statistics suggest that only 3 in 10 members of the armed forces think that they are paid fairly. Get that into perspective, that's nearly 70% of the armed forces who think that they are underpaid. Oh, and it certainly doesn't help when you take into account things like the cost of living crisis, groceries, rents, mortgages all going through the roof, inflation running rampant. All these things play a part. But equally, I do hold my hands up and admit that there are some perks and benefits to serving in the armed forces that you will not find in any other public or private sector job. Including, but not limited to, 30 days annual leave, a military pension, pension for volunteer reserve forces, healthcare, meals, housing, scroll down a little bit here, life insurance, travel, and service member and veteran benefits and discounts. On the face of it, it sounds great. But it's not as good as it seems. Certainly when it comes to the issue of housing. I mean, The Guardian reported here that service housing is particularly decrepit, because just over a year ago, the military had to apologise when around a third of homes were found to be needing repair, and army families had uploaded videos online of babies sleeping next to mouldy walls, water steaming through roofs, and one Royal Navy base was forced to shut down when silverfish and maggots were found in freezers. Yeah, that's not great. But then you go one step further and factor in, on top of that, the British military has shrunk by nearly 30% since 2000. And to put that 30% into perspective, the British Army has seen its numbers fall from 109,600 to 76,950 in 2023. That's even got the United States concerned. According to VOA News, in a rare intervention, a senior United States official urged its ally Britain to reassess the size of its armed forces. The remarks by US Navy Secretary Carlos del Toro echo concerns of senior military commanders in Britain. So why have our armed forces reduced in number by so much? And why are new recruits currently being paid nearly £7,000 less than the national UK average for entry-level jobs? In all seriousness, we really need to be showing these guys a lot more respect than they're currently being shown. Not just for those who are currently serving, but for our veterans as well. Our veterans are being shown a tremendous amount of disrespect right now, and very little is being done to help take care of them. Just have a listen to this.
It's estimated that around 4,000 veterans are homeless, with many living in hostels but hundreds on the streets. The government is pledging to end homelessness amongst veterans by next year, reinforced by an £8.5 million fund named Op Fortitude. Critics say they'll miss the target. The British Legion's Poppy Appeal raises cash to help veterans and their families. Like most places, homelessness is increasing in Nottingham by at least 50% this year.
Sadly, this problem isn't just limited to this country as well. This exists across the pond too.
We're here in Seattle. You're living in this van, 83 years old. You're a veteran.
Yes, I am.
And how long have you been out here living in your van?
About 5 years.
5 years, oh my gosh. Does it ever get lonely out here?
Not really.
Always people?
Because there's so many people in my situation, you can always talk to somebody.
You were just saying you had a friend sleep in the front for a while.
Yeah.
Just went into a shelter.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He had a brain injury on the job and he's epileptic, so he's not employable.
It ended up here.
Yeah, and he ended up here.
Absolute disgrace. That is an absolute disgrace. Why is homelessness so rife amongst veterans, not just here, but across the pond as well? Men and women who went off to fight in wars and now they're still struggling when they come back home. I cannot for the life of me imagine why or how this is even possible. Why are we treating these people with such disrespect and contempt? According to data from the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, the number of former service personnel classed as homeless has increased by 14% in a fiscal year, which is equated to nearly 500 new veterans who are being made homeless every 3 months. Between our veterans being left out in the dark and the number of people serving within our armed forces today reducing significantly, where does that leave us? Well, former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak had a really bright idea, I say bright in quotation marks, which was to enforce national service amongst 18-year-olds within this country. It doesn't work like that, okay? A lot of young people will look at the bigger picture, and given what's going on in the world today with new wars and conflicts kicking off in almost every part of the world, and the low pay levels and the disrespect that these people are being shown who are currently serving in the army, Gen Z will not stand for it. They don't take it in the corporate workplace. They're certainly not going to take it in a government role like serving in the armed forces. Conscription is not the answer. So what is the solution? Keir Starmer, Prime Minister, Labour Party, I now speak directly to you. I don't know if you'll see this or not, but I hope, whether it's from me or anyone else, you heed this advice. Please, stop being tight, loosen up the purse strings, and pay our armed forces and our veterans what they're worth, and give them the support that they need. With our military, give them the support they need in terms of fixing up the problems that we've seen with housing, with all this mold on the walls, etc. And with our veterans, please give them the support to take them off the streets and get them into safe, secure accommodation. And we know that many of them will be suffering with PTSD from any conflicts that they've taken part in. Please, support both groups. You made it clear in one of your speeches that you want to reform and level up the NHS.
We will fight for the NHS. We will fix the NHS. We will reform the NHS.
I've been around long enough not to take a politician at their word during an election campaign, because a lot of it can just be false promises, so I'll believe it when I see it. But if you have what it takes, if you have the courage of your convictions and you believe what you're saying in that you can fix, fund and reform the NHS, please include as part of that a mental health service that not only our military personnel and our everyday public can access, but most importantly our veterans can also access. With all the PTSD that they may endure from whatever conflict they may have seen, it's so important that they get the aftercare that is required to keep them sane and safe. Just finally, I want to say to anyone who's thinking about joining the military, who is currently serving in the military, or has served in the military, thank you. And I genuinely mean this, coming back to the phrase I mentioned at the beginning, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for your service. Your bravery is the best of this nation. I hope we see more respect and reverence from the politicians, and that they don't take you for granted in the way that they have in the past, but they start to pay you fairly and give you the support that you need to reintegrate back into public life once you leave the armed forces. But once again, thank you, and I salute you for everything that you do to keep us safe. And there we have it. We've reached the end of another video. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe down below if you enjoyed this video. Please do drop a comment. I love to engage with as many of you as possible in the comment section. I'll be returning soon, of course, with a new video, but until then, stay safe, God bless our armed forces and our veterans, and most importantly, best of luck in your job hunt. I'll see you all real soon. Take care.